nervous because I'm here now.
Hey guys, welcome into another episode of 410 Sports Talk. James Haskell along with my co-host Glenn Martin. And this episode, we're going to get into the Pro Bowl nominees from the Ravens. There's 7 of them to talk about. We're going to talk about snubs, guys that we're happy that got in, and all other things Pro Bowl. But before we get into it, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Give us a like. If you're new to the channel, you'll learn quickly that we're all about the Ravens. So go ahead and stay up to date when it comes to the Ravens and other NFL headlines. So go ahead and take a quick second, hit that subscribe button. But let's move right into this, Glenn. We got 7 Pro Bowlers. And I think you mentioned we're tied for the most with the Chiefs and the Packers. But who
and
are
the Seahawks?
Those? And the Seahawks. But who are those 7 guys that we got going?
Yeah, I'm going to start off with the starters since they are the big stars of the day. Justin Tucker comes as no surprise, although some may find it surprising. This is only his, 4th Pro Bowl selection?
4th Pro Bowl. Ridiculous.
I mean, clearly the best kicker of the last decade. But as I said before the show, kickers do get hot seasons, and you can only pick one kicker for each side. So, but shout out to Justin Tucker, much deserved, 4th Pro Bowl. He should have a ton more, but we'll take this one. And then his running mate, his fellow member of his Wolfpack, Morgan Cox, long snapper, also makes the Pro Bowl. It kind of a unsung hero, a guy we don't really notice a lot on the field. And honestly, we didn't miss him a ton when he was forced to miss with COVID because his backup's pretty darn good, who we had on the practice squad, who I'm blanking on his name right now. But shout out to Morgan Cox because not only does he snap it, but oftentimes he's involved in the tackle as well on punts. So shout out to Morgan. Pat Ricard, Project Pat, makes it as the starting fullback. Jimmy, I got a question. Is there any chance anyone supplants Pat Ricard as long as he remains a Raven and remains healthy?
Yeah, no way. I mean, to me, Pat is the best fullback I've seen in a long time because he's an old school fullback and he can get out and do like the new school Kyle Juszczyk. Yeah, he might not be as, quite the same wiggle or speed as Kyle Juszczyk, but as we know, he'll take you for a ride. We saw that in the last game. So I think his versatility is unmatched. There's no one even close to him as far as the breadth of things that he can do.
Yeah, I think his athleticism is so undersold and overlooked.
Yeah. For
being 300 to 310, I mean, this guy moves so phenomenal. He can execute any block, whether it be on a big slobber knocker in the trenches, or he can go be your lead blocker and take out a safety down the field. I mean, this guy can just do it all. As you mentioned, his catching out of the backfield, you got to respect that. So shout out to Pat Ricard. And then as far as some of the reserves, Orlando Brown Jr., man, what a player this guy's been. He starts off Pro Bowler last year as a right tackle. The guy's been, nothing but phenomenal as that. And then we go, hey, can you go play left tackle for us? Because our All-Pro just went down. And then he plays that at an All-Pro level. I mean, what else can you say about Orlando Brown?
I mean, it's just incredible for him to watch. And he just came out today in his presser and said that, he doesn't even feel like he's close to the type of player that he's capable of being. And I would agree with that based on his physical maturation. He's obviously a huge man. But I think that he'll continue to hone in on, if he continues to take football seriously, I think that you'll see him take his nutrition more and more seriously every year, his training more and more seriously every year. So the natural abilities that he's given that are unmatched can then match his personal dedication. And my goodness, I think he's going to, honestly, I know this is the worst case scenario for us. I think he's going to end up being a starting left tackle for another team and get paid Ronnie Stanley type money.
Yeah, that was the one thing we discussed before the season. What do you do with the 2 tackles? Not a lot of teams pay both their tackles a huge sum of money. You see Ronnie Stanley get a boatload.
Yep.
Yeah, we were kind of both on the fence about that because we remember Ronnie when Flacco was back there, and he wasn't, I don't know. But nonetheless, happy for both of them. Happy for Orlando Brown to get the nod. Next guy I want to talk about, a little bit of a surprise for me, Jimbo. Calais Campbell gets the nod in a season in which he's missed a few games. He left early in another one. What are your thoughts on him? Do you think this was more of on his name base, more of a popularity thing, or do you think he still deserved it on his own merit?
I think so. There's a couple things going into this. One, I think he's getting a little bit of the name treatment, the vet treatment. So I do think there is that, but also coming into when I'm reflecting on the season, he has had moments. The biggest problem for me is Calais has not been readily available. That's the only reason I personally, as much as I love him and he's a Raven, I would leave him out because he hasn't been available. But the one thing I can say in his favor is that he has had moments, going back to the first game of the season where he dropped back in the coverage, tipped the ball, to other plays that he's made throughout the season. it's not just his name is what I'm trying to say. He has had moments, but to me, the issue is he hasn't been available. So I was pretty surprised by it. If I was making my Pro Bowl roster, I wouldn't have put him on it. What about you?
Yeah, I got to agree with you. I mean, he's missed 4 games so far this season. Started off incredibly hot. I don't think anyone would argue through the first 8 he was definitely, or 9, he was definitely a Pro Bowler. But I mean, to me, you miss 4 games. I mean, I'm not going to, be upset that another Raven made the Pro Bowl, but I think I could understand where other fans and other teams may feel like their guy got slighted. He does still have 6 pass deflections, which is darn impressive for a D lineman. And he does have the 4 sacks. But to me, it's just not enough games, but I'm still happy for Calais and happy as a Ravens fan. The next guy I want to get into is a guy who needed to have a big season. Guys on he's right now on the franchise tag, but looking for an extension and looking for a big contract this coming offseason. Matt Judon makes the Pro Bowl. He has 5 sacks on the year, played in 12 of the 14 games. What are your thoughts on Judon?
Yeah, that was another surprise for me, only because he's got some good stats. They're solid, right? Like they're Matt Judon stats. They're solid.
Yep.
But to me, once again, not lighting the world on fire. So I think at the end of the day, doesn't now Ngakoue have more sacks than him? Doesn't Ngakoue have 7?
Yeah, well, if you include his time with Minnesota,
with the Vikings,
absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So like, at the end of the day, when you play forward in soccer, people all they really care about is goals. When you play outside linebacker, all most teams really care about is sacks, right? Not that that's the only thing that's important. You need to stop the runs, head the edge, and things like that, but you get paid for sacks. So I don't know. I'm happy that he made it, like you said, but I don't know if he would have made my roster. If I'm not mistaken, and I don't know how his stats are, but talking about jumping off the screen, Bud Dupree is not on this list, right?
Yeah, I did not see.
So I don't know what his stats are, but Bud has had some moments this year to me. Anyway, just one name that comes to the top of my mind. What do you think about
tackles
Judon?
For loss? Yeah, I mean, I think that you're right. I think it comes down to sacks, and then for me, it also comes down to tackles for loss. And he's solid. He's got 7 tackles for loss, 5 sacks. He's solid, but not spectacular. And to me, I can understand why other fan bases would be upset, but it's not like he was bad. So I'm not gonna say that.
Right.
So he was still a good player. I would like to see what type of numbers he could put if he would have played all 14 of the games. He did miss 2 games. We don't know how that could have kind of enhanced the stats, but it is what it is. I'm happy for Judon. I'm sure he's happy to. I'm sure his agent's happy that now he can go to the negotiation table with another Pro Bowl or with a Pro Bowl under his belt. And then last but certainly not least, our guy, Mr. Punch the Ball Out, Marlon Humphrey, who leads the league in forced fumbles this year, was our last to make it. And, to me, although the Ravens haven't been fortunate enough to jump on a lot of these forced fumbles, when you lead the league as a defensive back in forced fumbles, I mean, that's pretty darn impressive. What are your thoughts on Marlon Humphrey?
Yeah, you know what? I know we're going to get into Snubs in a little bit, but to me, I think look, the other guys that are in front of him, I realize that, they've had great years with Xavier Howard and Tre'Davious White. But like you said, that stat alone, I think that makes Marlon deserved of the starter role I know there's only 2 starters, but to me, I'm not taking anyone over Marlon. I know he has his weaknesses, getting beat deep and not tracking the ball and blah, blah. But he's so versatile. He's so physical. He is the Project Pat of cornerbacks, where he can do absolutely everything. He's just a defensive football player. If Marlon wanted to, sit at home and eat nothing but ice cream and burgers and put on some weight, he could play linebacker and he would be an excellent linebacker, right?
Oh,
so
there's no doubt about that.
My only point is that I think that the one thing I'm surprised about is that he's not a starter in the Pro Bowl.
Okay.
So yeah.
Well, my thing with Marlon, I agree with you. He's a heck of a player. I love having him as a Raven. He's got 75 combined tackles. We mentioned the 8 forced fumbles, 8 pass breakups. He does have 1 interception. But the thing is, it's kind of like Judon. We talk about Judon, you get paid for sacks and tackles for loss. You get paid for picks as a corner. And I know it's harder to get picks as a man corner, which is what he mainly does. It's what we do here in Baltimore. But, Xavier Howard's got 9 interceptions this year. So it's hard to argue with putting him at number one.
Right.
When you just hear that jumps out the table at you. But I'm still happy that the league is recognizing Marlon and what he does, because 8 forced fumbles. I mean, our corners are the number one and number two leaders in forced fumbles, with Peters being right behind Humphrey. So that's impressive. But yeah, and also the tackles. I mean, Xavier Howard, while he has 9 picks, which is great, he has just 45 total tackles. I mentioned that Marlon Humphrey has 75.
Right.
So that's a massive increase. So what he does against the run game, I don't think can be overlooked. I mean, this guy is a force on the edge. If you run to his side, you better be prepared to have a cornerback that's a linebacker that's the size of a cornerback hit you, because that's what it's going to be. And he's going to do it. He's going to bring some violence with it. So I'm happy that the Pro Bowl voters were able to recognize Marlon and how he's not going to get it done in maybe the most typical way a corner is. He's not going to go out there and pick the ball off, double digit times like we're used to seeing, like an Ed Reed in our secondary. But the guy does it in a bunch of different ways, and he still gets the job done. And he's still such an impact player and a guy we asked to do everything. I mean, we ask him, like Richard Sherman. I look at Richard Sherman. He graded as like the best corner last year. And there's no question why that is. They know what he's great at, and they let him do that thing he's really, really great at. Whereas Marlon is asked to do tons of different things. He's asked to play slot corner. He's asked to play outside corner. He's asked to cover your best tight end in a third down. I mean, this guy can do everything. He's a great run supporter. So to me, I love Marlon. I'm happy he's a Pro Bowl. I know I just went on a little bit of a rant, Jimmy, but I had to get that out.
Yeah, and the other thing I'll say is that I agree with you. You get paid for picks. But I think overall, you get turnovers in whatever fashion that they come they mean the same thing at the end of the day. Now, like you said, the unfortunate thing is we haven't been able to jump on all these fumbles, or on these fumbles. But the numbers are still outstanding. They're still incredible. Just like you were talking about Howard's interceptions. So that, like you said, last definitely not least. But I want to get into the snubs, if any, as far as the Ravens go. So Glenn, I know we were kind of reviewing the roster. Are there any guys that point out to you that stand out to you from the Ravens roster that you're surprised didn't make it?
I mean, to me, it's the number one guy. It's our guy. It's Lamar Jackson. I mean, he missed one game, and while a lot of people look at this year as a down year, of course, when you compare it to last year, which was ridiculous and historic, I can agree with you. But if you just look at his numbers, the guy is still having a fantastic season, and that's with missing a game due to COVID. I mean, and we can see how, if you look around the league and see other quarterbacks that were forced to miss due to that, they showed effects from it. They showed that it took a couple weeks to get back to normal. Cam Newton's one guy who I don't know if he ever recovered from the COVID situation, the lack of practice. But on the season, he has a 65% completion percentage, 21 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions through the air. And then on the ground, he adds 828 yards rushing, which, by the way, leads our team by almost 300 yards, and 7 touchdowns on the ground. So, I mean, I think that we can agree that is absolutely sensational. You look at Deshaun Watson, who I would say I think needs to be flip-flopped out of there for him. While he may have the edge through the air at a 70% completion percentage for 27 touchdowns and just 6 picks, I mean, he definitely doesn't, come that close on the ground. He has just 394 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns, which is still good for a quarterback. It's just not even in the realm of where Lamar Jackson is right now. So, to me, and then I know you have some opinions on this as well, so I'm gonna let you take over.
Yeah, for me, the other thing that's important is if you compare it to like a guy getting a Heisman, right? They always in college football talk about Heisman moments. That was a Heisman moment. This was a Heisman moment. I think it's fair to say that, like, same thing in the NFL. That was an MVP moment. This is an MVP moment. Things like that. I think you have to do the same thing a little bit with the Pro Bowl. So my issue is just simply that Deshaun Watson had and I'm a Deshaun Watson guy. You know this.
You got him on your fantasy team. He's got you in the championship.
That's right, man. And last year I was fighting tooth and nail before, Mahomes won the Super Bowl that, at the beginning of the season, I was a Watson guy over Mahomes guy. Now, don't ask me that question now because
Watson damn near beat him in the first round. Remember, they had a double-digit lead in that game.
You're right. I think they're up, 24 or something like that?
Oh,
insane.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if you look at who look, so I'm just going to run down it. This year, the Texans have lost to Kansas City, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Minnesota, Tennessee, Green Bay, Cleveland, Indy, and Chicago. They've only beaten Detroit, New England, Jacksonville, and Jacksonville. So he has not had a single moment in my mind that is a Pro Bowl moment, a signature win in this season. And in fact, quite the contrary, where on December 6th, they lost 26-20. They're driving down the field and he fumbles it in the red zone. They're going to, it's a go-ahead touchdown scenario. They hit the extra point. They go up by 1. They win the game. I think there was like 16 or 12 seconds left in that game. So I love Deshaun Watson as a player. I think he was, of course, worth the money and everything else. And I think that if they can, I know that his cast is like the replacements at this point, but at the end of the day, you got to have moments to make the Pro Bowl. If not, it's just empty calories. And I think Lamar has had moments this year that warrant him jumping Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, I think you definitely have to take into account the win-loss record, the quality of your wins. You mentioned it. They have they have 4 wins, right, Jimmy?
Yeah.
2 of their 4 wins came over the worst team in the NFL, who the Ravens just got done absolutely embarrassing. And they haven't beaten a single team that's going to qualify for the playoffs.
Yeah.
That is not, and yeah, I agree with you that it's mainly on the supporting cast and the former coach, but that nonetheless, you can't just push all that aside. Well, if he would have had this, and then he would have, had a better win-loss record, and but he didn't. So to me, it kind of likens to giving the, in the NBA, giving the All-Star nod to a guy who averaged 20 on the worst team in the league. Well, somebody has to score. I mean, somebody's throwing the ball in Houston. So it's not like he's not going to he's going to put up some numbers, but like you mentioned, they're empty calories. 4-10, you haven't beat a single team that's going to sniff the playoffs. To me, I think you got to give the nod to Lamar. And let's be honest, if Lamar doesn't get the COVID, which is, kind of unfortunate for him, it's not like he had fault in it. It was kind of brought to his doorstep in a way. If he plays in that 14th game, I think it's obvious he would be tied or ahead of Deshaun in total touchdowns. Yeah. So, I mean, to me, it's yeah. I think Lamar got a little bit slighted there, but I'm okay with that actually, because I think this is good for Lamar. This is he plays well with a nice chip on his shoulder, and I think that it will be beneficial for him to get this little bit of I don't even call it a setback, but a little bit of a knock, in his career.
Yeah, and then on top of that, I think that Lamar is kind of done with individual accolades, right? He's gotten them all throughout his life. I mean, he's got to have a whole room full of individual accolades. So he wants to stay focused on that championship. I think that's what it's about at the end of the day. And so, hopefully this helps him stay singularly focused. Not that he's not now, but like you said, maybe gives him a little more motivation. Just like in Rocky IV, it's going to send him to Russia and the mountains, right? He's going to grow a beard and he's going to come out chopping wood and everything else, So hopefully that works out. But let us know what you guys think. Were there any people that we missed? Any snubs that you think should have made it? Any other folks that did make it that you don't think should have made it? But this is our qualification here. If you're going to give us a name, tell us who they're going to replace, because that's, you can't just say, well, this guy. Look at the roster. Let us know who they're going to replace, and we will field your argument. But we look forward to hearing from you guys.
Well, yeah, I just want to add to that a little bit, because you can't just, we looked at Mark Andrews. We understand he's had a heck of a season, but if you look at the guys ahead of him with Kelsey and Darren Waller, there's just no room for him. I mean,
he can't do too much.
Kelsey is second in the league in receiving yards, and Darren Waller has 93 catches on the season. So, yeah. So, like Jimmy said, if you got a guy who you feel is snubbed, let us know who they're replacing, and we'll talk soon.
See ya.